ready for takeoff.
We are cleared for takeoff.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Time to take flight in your community and in your life. This is Audio Airstrike.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Everett Hall-McNeill. This is Audio Airstrike, episode 177. Thank you for joining us. I have two special guests with me today. They have been very familiar with Audio Airstrike. One guest, you've seen him countless of times. He's been a reoccurring guest on this show. And one of my good friends, ladies and gentlemen, Brandon Kinion is with us. And then we have another guest, Larry Randall Jr. is with us to talk about some of the topics today. Fellas, I appreciate you for coming through. Thank you so much for coming through. Appreciate it. Definitely happy to have you guys here.
Thanks for having us, man.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. So, look, at this point, y'all are good friends of mine and stuff of that nature. But I got a topic that is very, very interesting, and it's something that I face not only in my own podcast career, but you guys have also faced it in the workplace and some of your creative endeavors. Can friends work together in business? That is an age-old question, but the argument has been on fire this week with news that Joe Budden has let go of Mal and Rory due to creative differences, business differences, or whatever, what have you, is going on. Now, I'm going to be honest, and Larry, I'm going to have you start it off because you've been on this podcast the least, so I kind of want to hear your voice first, and then I'll have Brandon close. But from my perspective, right, when it comes to doing a creative venture that turns into something with cash, where salaries are coming in, money's coming in, revenue's coming in, streams are going and stuff like that, income is being generated in a lot of different ways. How deep does the loyalty go? Is it because of, when it comes to the loyalty aspect of it, how deep does the loyalty go? It's easy to say, hey, man, I'll ride with you. I'll be your good buddy. It's not a problem. But when you put 200 million in somebody's face, 100 million, 50 million, 1 million in somebody's face, and everybody's thinking about their own situation, you really get a sense of who actually follows up with what they're saying and backing up their words. I'm going to be very honest here. I've seen people show who they really are when they don't get necessarily all that they want on many of occasions. And that's including some friends. And I ain't going to put nobody's name out on blast today because this is not the type of spicy podcast that I'm trying to do. But the reality of the situation is these things comes up and there's going to be differences. So, Larry, you've listened to my podcast. I'm assuming you listen to Joe Budden Podcast, right?
I do, for sure.
So what are your thoughts personally on that whole situation?
I have a few opinions on the situation as a whole. I think I'm going to start with the Joe aspect. He has a track record of this type of, let's say, nonsense, where he gets something going, whether it be Slaughterhouse or his deal at Def Jam and, the thing with the academics, Everyday Struggle. And then he just flips the script. So I think he's not really in a place where he can preach too much about them doing whatever they're doing from the standpoint that he's just messed up too many deals. Now, from the Rory and Mal part, they do have to understand that if you don't have a written contract, even though legally a verbal contract is just as good as a written one, you have to get some things ironed out before you move on and just assume that you're going to get, in this case, equity or certain amount of points on a podcast share or whatever the case is. So I think they all have a little bit of fault in this. I think if I'm giving the most amount of blame, I'll probably give 60 to Joe. Because I feel like there's probably some times where Joe probably said, hey, guys, when we finally make it, I got y'all. Or when we finally do this, you got this or you got this. And they took him at his word as friends. And then I give that other 40% to them for not following up, getting it on paper, holding him to the fire pretty much. So I can see it from a lot of different elements of, who's at fault for the breakup and overall the whole thing not working out. But then the other point is for Rory and Mal, they let two guys come into their spot and replace them. So they played it wrong. You went on strike, but you let two guys come and replace you almost immediately. So you almost should have been on strike on the couch. Stayed there. Don't move from your seat. So they definitely played their hands wrong. But it's be interesting to see how this shakes out, to be honest with you. I don't think it's over. I think they still have some. There's still a Rory and Mal side we haven't heard yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'm going to add this tidbit in there, then I'm going to switch it over to Brandon. Here's the thing. From Joe's perspective, he gave them and asked them, hey, do you want to do this? Mal, you're good at fashion. You want to do this fashion thing? Rory, do you want to do your own thing? And from his perspective, they didn't take those extracurricular things. Now, I look at it like this. We cannot assume what people think anymore because it changes like seasons. They can say this 1 month, they can say this a couple months from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, it'd be something totally different. And because most people are like that, you have to get things in writing. You have to put in writing, this is what your duties are. These are your expectations. This is what's expected. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't do anything. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. This is what we are agreeing to, regardless of what happens. I hear this buzzword that's being passed around since I heard, and trust me, I've been on Clubhouse, I've been in Reddit chats, I've seen what everybody has to say, people putting the blame on Joe, people calling Parks a yes man, people sitting over there giving fire to Rory, people sitting over there giving fire to Mal. This buzzword of transparency goes out the freaking window if nothing is set in stone and communication is broken. You can forget about transparency. So the thing that I said in a recent chat is, for example, right? I haven't had a co-host on this show in almost 3-4 years now. We've had a reoccurring guest model. So let's just say, for example, I decide to bring you two on as co-hosts. I'm giving y'all a paper that tells y'all exactly what y'all expect. I'm not going to sit over here and do no word of mouth type stuff because y'all need to know exactly what you're getting yourself into, what the duties are, what's going on. So that way there isn't no ill will feelings later if something goes left to be like, well, hey, like he let me know on a sheet of paper we both agreed to that this is what's going to be happening. And then if there's a certain term that ends with that agreement, then what you could also do is renegotiate. As long as the stuff is communicated and on an actual documented piece of paper, it'll save a lot of headache. Brandon, what's your thoughts?
I think it's like this. I think when you're doing business with friends, family, whatever, you got to keep in mind there's two types of business. One's service and the other one's product. If you're selling somebody a car, selling somebody a house, selling something like that, you automatically do the paperwork. I mean, I think that's interesting. You would talk about the paperwork with stuff because if you're selling, once something has a certain amount of value and you are selling it to someone, you have to fill out this paperwork. Somebody has to take ownership. I can't just give you a car with no paperwork, you know? So paperwork's important. Now, in terms of this situation, the creative arts with friends, starting an endeavor, I think put the renegotiation in the contract, like if we get X number of followers, X number of subscriptions, X number of whatever, then we can renegotiate our previous deal. I think that's very important because you never know where something's going to go, how it's going to be. Joe Biden, no, Joe Biden. Sorry about that. Joe Budden, I thought he had a couple points though. Number one, it was his show. Number two, he was bringing in the sponsors and stuff like that. If your name is attached to it and you have more value to the show, if it's your show, then other people need to recognize they can be replaced. I mean, this is the world we live in. If it's your music album, you can choose somebody else to be on a certain part. If it's your film you're directing, you can choose different people. You always have that creative control. Now, when it's a split endeavor or something to that effect, that needs to be written out. Like if it's your show, Everett, there's no way you're going to be all right with not having control over the show to a certain extent.
Damn right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that simple. And like we're talking about the creative arts, but this is on a bigger scale. This is almost any company. I was thinking about this with it. Your boss or whoever's paying you, it doesn't necessarily need to be your boss. It could be your client. They're paying you for a job and they want you to be focused on that job. They don't want you. Now, you can do that job and somebody might see the way you work and somebody else might offer you another job. This is funny. This is not funny. This is actually very real. Somebody might see you, Everett and I working on Larry's job and say, you know what? I really like that guy, Brandon. I want to hire him. Well, you know what? That's down the road. Then if I'm in business with Everett for like years or we have a contract together, I might have a thing where I got to tell Everett, hey, this guy over here, he's offering me X number of dollars. Now, if Everett says, yeah, go get your money, he's got to understand that could come up as a conflict of interest with you. And I think this is where the problem is. There's a big conflict of interest because these other people are on Joe Budden's show. They say they have other opportunities and nobody, I don't know, I think it's an ego trip. I don't really work like this, but if somebody's paying you and you're on their show, it's almost like, or you're on their label or whatever, it's like they want to control how much. They never want you making more money than the label. They never want you worth more money than the label. I mean, this is a theme in history. I mean, the only one that wasn't really, the only one I really liked the way he carried himself with it is Master P. I like the way Dre carried himself and him, but I don't know from the outside looking in, I said. But like, look at Jay-Z and Dame Dash. It got to a point where Jay-Z was worth more money than Dame Dash, and that became a problem. It's a reoccurring problem, even if the paperwork's there, because as your value increases, you want to know what's out there. Now, the problem is television shows. This is a big thing with actors. Sometimes an actor will be on a television show and their value increases and they say, you know what, I'm ready to make that skip to movies. But sometimes it doesn't work out. And, then it really there's a lot to it, so you got to be careful. Sometimes it's better to deal with strangers because then you're watching them and they're watching you. And sometimes it's better to work with friends because if you can really trust your friend, then they're watching your back and you're watching their back. You're a team. But even with strangers or friends, it does come down to teamwork. And I mean, Joe Budden's a talented man, but he's a solo act. In my opinion, I remember when he was rapping, he was a solo act. You got to remember that.
Yeah, I definitely think that when it comes to Joe Budden and what he brings to the table, he can make stuff very interesting and hot. His brand has been, this man's been very open of putting his trial and tribulations out there. And when he goes through certain things, the world knows about it. Or should I say the hip hop community as a whole knows about it, whether he was a rapper, podcaster, or a TV personality. We know about Joe inside and out. Now,
got a lot of energy.
Yeah, he does. And the one thing, say what you want about Joe, his voice and how he articulates stuff keeps you tuning into what he does.
Yeah.
He's not DJ Khaled level of like rapid positivity annoyance. Like, that's a skill to do that.
Right.
That's a skill to do that. Like, to be that positive, but to keep like positivity. It's obnoxious, but it works because it's so rapid. But Joe's talent is different, where if he's upset about something, there's one side of Joe. If he's chill about something, it's portrayed in a side where it's almost, okay, we're getting chill, Joe. I can get with this. He knows the timing.
He comes from a keep it real generation. That's a big deal there.
Yeah, well, he keeps it from not only a keep it real generation, but from a y'all think y'all have it bad now. Back then, there were a couple moments where I was getting my head blown. I could have got my head blown off, and here's how it happened. Like, he openly talks about this stuff. So that's what keeps him going. And let's be honest, I'm not taking a dig at these guys. Did I think these guys had contributed a great deal? Absolutely. I think the chemistry that those four gentlemen made together, and then Parks adding himself on the mic, I think it was great chemistry. However, I do think that before the Joe Budden podcast, we didn't really know who Rory was. We didn't really know who Maul was. We got a chance to get to know these personalities. So now, if you look at the equity and leverage before they got on that podcast and after, I say they're in a pretty good spot. They can't run and do a whole nother podcast venture because there may be a lawsuit brewing from Joe's end based on contract that Joe was talking about. But
let me ask you this, you guys as professionals, what do you guys think their splits were? How do you think they were compensated? You think it was a profit thing? Do you think it's just a salary? What do you guys think it was? Like splitting profits, or like a base salary?
My guess is they had a base salary and they had incentives for some type of bonus. Oh. And according to some of the stuff that I was reading about, like Joe had told them, you bring money in, you bring sponsors in, you can get a cut of that, and everybody acts like it's all Joe Budden's money, and it might be, I don't know, but normally something like that, money goes to the company, and then from the company people get paid, and then people get incentives, and somebody that brings in sponsors, they get a cut of that, normally. And almost anything.
So the one layer I think I may have not made, I think we may have overlooked. What do you guys think about the network? So I think where Rory's coming from, if it's a like a incentive based thing or a profit based thing, Joe Budden's building a network currently, and he's putting these other podcasts on his network. So I think Rory and Maul might be looking at it like, hey, are you building these other podcasts off our backs, or are we going to lose any skin off of us for these podcasts, or are we sharing in those profits? Like, I think there's a little bit more to it with the network involved now that he's, added that layer to it.
Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Larry.
Here's the thing, right? So I think that what was exposed was, and here's something that we got to understand, a podcast making money singly is a good thing. But if let's say you got a network that's got 5 podcasts that's doing the numbers that Joe Rogan is doing, that Joe Budden is doing, that, name another good podcast, Charlamagne the God, Bill Simmons. If you got 5 of those type of podcasts on your network, you are going to get triple digit, like $100 million plus deals because of the numbers that it's bringing in to somebody's platform. That's what a network can do. Joe is seeing this and being like, okay, but if I can find, I have Girl, I Guess, I have this other show, I have ours. If I can look and search and look around for a couple of podcasts that's pulling in those same numbers, Why do you think Charlemagne, who's been podcasting for years, is partnering with iHeartRadio to do the Black Effect network? They're 50-50. Him and iHeartRadio are 50-50 partners because they understand that a network potentially is going to generate more money than one podcast. One podcast has been proven to do well. That's true. But, for example, Barstool Sports. Look at the number of podcasts they got. If Dave Portnoy decided, I'm going to sell the podcast division of Barstool Sports as is, that's a multi-million-dollar deal because of the numbers that each and every single podcast under that brand is making by themselves. And now they're part of the network too. So Joe understands that, and that's what he's doing. Now, I'll say this. I don't know how those splits are looking. I don't know if he's thinking, if we make the network hot and the network get big, you guys can almost be like executives under me, and you guys can get a bigger cut that way. That may be what he was thinking, but I'm not sure. I don't pocket watch people, so I don't know.
And I think that's the layer that's going to come out down the road where we're going to figure out, I guess, who's right per se, who's wrong per se. I think obviously contracts are contracts, but there's still some morality to some of how we're looking at this, from even though I know you're supposed to separate your feelings from business. We all understand that, but there's, like you said, that friendship level, and they built this as friends, and now you're building a network. So I guess we'll see how this shakes out from that standpoint. I think still a lot more to come for that.
Yeah, but didn't he say straight up, like you just got certain responsibilities for this show. They weren't meeting those responsibilities for the show, and that was the reason he let him go.
Right.
Well, there was tension.
No,
and
but he said that they were not fulfilling the responsibilities of their contract.
Yeah, from his perspective, that's what they were saying.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the funny. I don't know if this part was necessary. It was funny to me, I should say. So when he said that, all I could think of was we've all been at jobs where we're not getting paid the greatest, and you see your boss walk in with that new Tesla, and you're like, oh man, he making way more than me. You know what? I don't think I'm gonna send that email today. I'll send it tomorrow. It's like one of those things. It's like you get to that spot where
have you ever been in a job where your job was just part of your income, and then your boss finds out how much money you got stashed, and the look at his face, like that's an even more ridiculous.
Right.
Like you're talking about the way it normally is, but what is the reverse? And see, that's the thing about Joe Budden. Like I see some of these guys, like they'll let you get big, but they're only going to let you get so big under them. You're not going to be better than them, And,
no doubt.
And I think it's just natural ambition for some people to see things as no limits. Like you and I have gone as far as we can go on this run. I can do this. I can surpass you. Whether that works out, I don't know. But when you're at a high point, it's a hell of a lot easier when you got a lot of money, then you've done something and you're ready for something new to think I can do what he does. But that's not always the case.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So to wrap this up, the one thing I'll say is, man, make sure there's clarity and transparency. You cannot go by what somebody says. You have to go by what's written in these agreements and contracts. I'm going to switch gears to another topic, and this has kind of been an interesting topic. There's been talk about unveiling a Superman story having Clark Kent be actually African American. So I'm going to literally say my short piece on this, and then Larry, I'm gonna have you take it away. I noticed that ever since that Black Panther came out in 2018, a lot of people have finally gotten to a point where they have finally accepted, hey, let's start telling stories of African American superheroes and characters. And I'm going to be honest. Some fans look at this as a lazy attempt to rehash a popular story and just repaint the ethnicity of who Superman is. Take that for what it is. Like, if you're going to tell a story from a black perspective about how somebody who's Kryptonian that's African American becomes Superman in a different Earth, let's make the story a little bit interesting. That's what I'm concerned about, is them just rehashing it, making everybody just try to make it a new thing, but all they did was rehash it and then change the ethnicity of the characters around. I hope they don't make it that lazy. So I'm just saying I'm all for it because I'm all for representation for everybody. However, it better not be lazy, rehash storylines that we've seen in Superman before, but just the ethnicities are different. Larry, what's your thoughts?
So to complement what you said, you got to follow the money, right? What they're doing here is not necessarily new. So, and I'm always going to take a dump on DC when I get a chance, but because I'm a Marvel guy. But so Marvel did this with Miles Morales, the new Spider-Man. They did this with Thor when they made her a woman. They did this with Ironheart, I think is her character, when they replaced Tony Stark with that black young female. So they've been toying with the idea of using different races and different, I guess, gender fluid type of characters. So they've been toying with this in the comics for a while. So I'll start there. But where you follow the money at is the two most popular characters in comic book realms. You have Superman and you have Spider-Man and you have Batman, or however order you put them in.
That's the big three.
Yeah. So when they saw the success of Miles Morales, even after the initial pushback, which is the Black Spider-Man for those who don't follow comics, when they saw Black and Hispanic Spider-Man. So when they saw the success of that, the comics went through the roof. He got a new video game on PS5. It's one, actually, I think it's probably top 10 selling video games of all time at this point. There's the talks of Miles Morales joining the MCU. So they're seeing the money there and they're saying, oh, we can probably replicate that and do it with our most popular character, which is Superman. So it's not necessarily a new concept. And of course, you have the success of Black Panther, but we've had Blade and some other successful Black films about Black superheroes. But yeah, so it's just follow the money. And I think the Miles Morales part really pushed DC to, maybe we should do our spin on this. It's a cash cow. People are buying in. So there will be some that put like Star Wars, where they had it was the Black Stormtrooper, and there was a big pushback about that. People still went to the film. It still made a lot of money. So, it's always going to get a little pushback, but, like I said, it always comes back to the almighty dollar.
Yeah. Brandon, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, according to the money, like what Larry was just talking about, one of the things I kind of Googled was that there was 42 million people, African-American people in the United States of America. So hypothetically, if you get all those people to buy one ticket, you're looking at $1 billion film. So you got to think about that if you're talking about targeting. Now, in terms of the racial stuff, swapping a character black, swapping a character, something like that. I think there have been experiments that led to this point. And I think some of them were very successful. I think the best one was Rocky and Creed. I thought that was a really smooth transition because I think there was a really good story to be had with Creed. Creed was a really lovable character from the original Rocky series. And then you're going into some real good film history with Rocky 1 and the way they built that franchise. So that's really, really a good example of how it can transition smoothly. With the Miles Morales Spider-Verse thing, I thought Marvel did other things that really made Miles appeal to people too, not just in the film and in the comic book, but the video game's been very successful. And I'm not even a video game guy like that, but I know from a lot of people telling me that this second video game with Miles Morales was really a heavy hitter and a big thing. So then you also got Marvel with Captain America, and that's been pretty successful. The thing about the Clark Kent thing is at that point you're kind of being controversial right off the top. And are you doing this because you really believe it, or are you doing this to try to create a buzz of controversy to get people talking about it immediately? I wonder about that sometimes, because I think sometimes people do in this society of social media literally bring controversy to themselves or to the projects just to get people talking about it and to feel things out. And I don't think social media is necessarily the place where you figure out where we draw the line on this or that or that or this. I guess another thing that kind of confuses me about the Clark Kent character, if he's going to be black, is Lois Lane also going to be black? Because if you're trying to do this edgy thing and you make Clark Kent black, but you keep Lois Lane white, are you being edgy for like the interracial relationship or whatever? I mean, I'm curious to that. How committed are you really to doing this if you really want to do it? I think that there's a need for black representation in superheroes. I think black people wanted that for a long time. I think a black Superman is a really cool thing if it's done correctly. I would have really liked to have seen Idris Elba play James Bond. I would have personally liked that a lot because I think he's an English man. I think James Bond's an English character, and I could see that right off the top. With the Superman thing, you know, I don't think it's ever lazy, because I think it takes a lot of work to do any project. I think it takes a lot of work to write it, to cast it, to do your best effort. So I don't think it's ever lazy. I think, as Larry said, sometimes you're aiming for the dollars, or you're trying to do something to kind of satisfy a crowd or whatever. But when artists actually get involved in the project, I think you should kind of go into it blind and have, even if you're nervous about whether or not this works or not, you should be open-minded to the fact that these people are doing the best they can. And they really want to knock this out the park. It's like optimism versus cynical kind of thing. And if you're going into the project looking for problems, you're going to find problems. And if you're looking for good things, you're going to find good things. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man.
Hey, you know what? I will say this. Batman's next. Batman's next. They already have a black Batman in the comics. Depending on what storylines you follow. But so I think we're going to start seeing this more often. I mean, they have the Miss Marvel coming out with Kamala Harris. So they're, doing the Middle Eastern female thing. And, so we're going to start seeing this being more of a regular thing. I think it's going to be almost a non-conversation in 10 years. I think it's just going to be a thing that we see pretty regularly.
I'm for it. I just want those characters to be done justice. You know what I mean? I don't want no campy, we trying to be just spicy to get, income coming in. I want these characters to be the same grounds that we look at Batman and Superman as they look now. I want that same respect for characters of African American descent that happen to be superheroes.
I was thinking, I think as long as they don't put Clark Kent in Compton, I'm good.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Like, don't put him in Compton. Don't put him in, middle of Chicago somewhere. Like, make it like a hood story. Like, don't
make it a hood story.
Yeah, as long as we don't do that, I'm good.
Yeah, keep it. Not every black person comes from the hood. Don't make it a hood story. Don't feel like you got to turn. Yeah, I don't want to hear Superman talk about Crenshaw. I don't want to hear that. Stop it.
I don't want to see him banging. I don't want to see him carrying a flag.
Dropping the new EP.
Right. I don't want to hear Clark Kent talking about 4 wings and fries, and he on corner of North Avenue. I don't want to hear that. That's just me. That's just me, man. So we're gonna switch gears in here. I want to talk about Elon Musk, and the reason why I want to talk about Elon Musk is so he's been kind of playing this game where I say something to either bring a certain value up or down in terms of cryptocurrency for my benefit because I'm Tesla. I am the front runner of Tesla. So if it's better in the moment for Bitcoin to drop a little bit, or for me to, talk about, give some spice to Dogecoin, it drops a little bit so more people can get into Dogecoin, and it goes right back up a little bit, then that works in my favor. How do you feel personally, Larry, about Elon Musk playing these games, or is it just politics and business as usual?
Well, as an investor in cryptocurrency, I have some stake in a few of these things that Elon has been playing with. I personally love it. The stock market itself has been kind of shaky, to say the least. So to get the crypto market to go up the way it's been going, it's really saved some people like me. Like, it's saved my portfolio, like, shifting over to that. But I think it's business as usual. The big guys are going to, do big guy things. I'm actually surprised. I'd be surprised if the government doesn't start taking legal action against Elon, because people like Warren Buffett can't go and say, hey, I'm buying this stock tomorrow, make sure all y'all do the same, because that would crash the market. There's certain things that you can't do in that space. Now, obviously, cryptocurrency, relatively speaking, is a new entity in itself. So I don't know if they have the legalities of, something that the stocks have been around since whenever, since the country was founded. So I think Elon doing this thing is par for the course. I don't see anything wrong with it, as long as you just have to know how to play the game. I will say it's not for people to just go and gamble. It's not the casino. You shouldn't put your life savings into it. If you have a few dollars you want to play with, yeah, gamble with that. That's cool. But you're seeing some of these horror stories on Twitter where somebody got left holding the bag, as they say. So somebody went to GameStop at $400 and then they dropped, and now they lost all their money. Somebody goes into Dogecoin when it's at 50 cents or 75 cents, and then it drops and they lose all their money. So I think it is on the investor to be smart and strategic with the way that they move. I don't know if I necessarily blame Elon for, other people's movements.
Yeah, man. I think as long as people know what they're getting into and taking the proper steps and being like, okay, like, I'm going to put this little money in here. I'm using probably this towards my retirement or a big purchase or just to build my financial wealth. Because let's be honest, folks, just doing the typical 9-to-5 is not going to secure your retirement. Everybody should know this by now. You need to diversify your portfolio, put it in stocks, cryptocurrencies, real estate, some other stuff, and work on ways of doing that. Because depending on a 9-to-5, that is not going to have your back like it did 40 years ago. It don't work that way. So it's best to figure out something to invest in so that way you are protecting yourself. And I hate to say it, in this country, you have to look out for yourself a little bit to a point. So when it comes to this is going to be great for some, bad for others. And you got to figure out on which side of the coin, pun intended, do you want to be. So absolutely, man. I definitely agree with that. So I want to switch gears and talk about this topic for a second, and that is the gas shortage. It's got people hoarding gasoline, you idiots. Yeah, I'm going to call y'all. Yeah, I got smoke for y'all. Y'all selfish people out here hoarding gasoline. Y'all hoard enough in your houses. You're hoarding gasoline now. That's what we doing? Jesus Christ. Sorry for taking the Lord's name in vain, but good grief, man. Like, this is ridiculous. Anyway, despite the colonial pipeline system getting back online, this is what I pulled from Yahoo Finance. Motorists are still draining gas stations. It may take weeks until the gasoline supply returns to normal. This is what a senior petroleum analyst, Patrick Dehan, says from Gas Buddies. So I want your thoughts on this, guys, because the situation has gotten out of control. Me, myself, personally, there's no reason why you should be hoarding gasoline to preserve your own. This is just as dumb as when people heard of a pandemic and the first thing they went to get in bundles is freaking toilet paper. They got more toilet paper than food in their house. Are you kidding me right now? So, I think it's just whack. Get your regular gas how you've been getting it. This will take weeks. It'll take a couple weeks and everything will be fine back to normal. I don't understand what the problem is. Larry, what's your thoughts?
I think we're on the kind of like the same page. It's kind of like, what are people thinking? What do you think's going to happen? You're going to go and save all this gas, and then what? You're going to run out in 3 weeks? Like, I mean, you didn't buy enough gas to last you a lifetime. So, and you probably don't have anywhere to store it for a lifetime anyhow. So I don't get people. This was, like you said, kind of reminiscent of when the pandemic first started, and I couldn't even barely get toilet paper. You felt like you were a king if you had a roll of toilet paper. Like it's one of those things. I have a theory, and people don't really like me saying it. It's 97% of the world is idiots. It's just you can't do nothing with them. They lack logic. They lack their own sense of, I don't even know what you would call that. They're sheep. They follow what everybody else is doing. So if I told you, hey man, you better go get that gas, they're gonna leave their kids at school. They're gonna drop what they're doing to go port some gas. So I don't know. This is I don't want to say we haven't seen this before, but we have seen this before. It's a shame, more or less. It's just a shame.
Yeah, it's terrible. I don't even know what more to say, man. Y'all some selfish Bamas for sitting over there hoarding gasoline. Just like y'all act like we don't have, like how much money the America makes on gasoline. You think it's just gonna go out like, you think snap my fingers it's gonna go out like that? A bunch of gasoline they make billions of dollars off of a year. Ridiculous. Moving on.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
One of the things about it that's interesting, everyone's like, moving on. Nah, but I'm serious. I wonder sometimes, like, if in 100 or 200 years from now, they're going to look back at, like, this era that we're living in, 2000s to whatever, as, like, the era where people were just addicted to screens, like television screens, cell phone screens, and stuff like that. Because literally, whatever the screen tells you to do, people want to go do whatever people see. And it doesn't matter how crazy it looks. If you see 100 people hoarding toilet paper, oh my God, it's the end of the world. We got to go hoard toilet paper. If you see all these videos of people doing all this crazy stuff with gas, it's like, oh my God, they're doing it, so I might as well do it. I mean, it's it really is kind of scary how just people are conditioned just to look at their TV, not the real world around them, for guidance, or their screen or computer. Is sad.
Yeah, it's messed up overall, man. But I will say this. When it comes to representation, we will fight like dogs. And that is exactly what people in the film industry are doing, because the NBC network will not air the 2022 Golden Globes amid controversy of lack of representation. I'm going to start off with this, and Brandon, I'm going to let you kick it off because this is more your wheelhouse, this is more your bag. The system of Hollywood as you know it, in terms of how they have been running, in terms of representation, is going to change and has been changing. Because people are not going to condone not being represented on screen anymore. This has been a transition since the Oscar So White scandal a few years back. And when I look at this issue, this is a pressing issue. This is something that has not been solved yet, because you have people in position of power that are so used to the way things have been done, and they've benefited so much from those things and the ways that everything has been done, that they really can't, in their mind, they can't fathom, like, oh my God. Like, they want certain stuff changed, and they may not say it in front of your face, But behind closed doors, they're like, I profited off this. I've made so much cachet off this, and now we're just going to reinvent the wheel? Because truth be told, and when it comes to people in these Hollywood positions, nobody likes their position rattled, or they hate the fear of their position rattled. When in the grand scheme of things, people just want representation. People want to have the opportunity without being treated like a second-class citizen. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
Wow. I mean, yeah, I see that as part of the problem. I do. The old guard, new guard. I totally see that. But I think man, when it comes to award shows, we're talking about the Golden Globes, right? That's what we're talking about right now, the Golden Globes. Or are we talking award shows in general? The thing about
we're talking about Golden Globes in Hollywood in general.
And we're talking about nominations for these awards?
Yep.
Okay. For a long time, it seems like MTV's been the most fair. The MTV, it's crazy to say that, but the MTV Video and Music Awards seem like it's the most fair. And even though it's catered towards a younger group, because, it's about what's popular and what's like that. The Oscars for a long time, especially this year, has just been messing up left and right. I mean, like sometimes they overdo it for this and they underdo it for this. It just doesn't seem like it's fair. Golden Globes the same way. But in this year in particular, 2020 and going into 2021, I think people are tired of seeing elite attitudes look down on us because we like certain things. I think there's a big problem when so many breakthroughs have happened with Black Panther and stuff like that, and they didn't win no awards. You and I have talked about this a million times about people are paying to see action film movies, and you got these deep, emotional, what's wrong with society type of movies. And I'm saying there's a place for both of them, but one of them doesn't have a seat at the table, right? Would you agree to that? One, and that would be the action adventure kind of things. They don't have a seat at the table with these, I don't know, Hollywood snooty artistic films, although I like snooty artistic films. And then on top of that, you got this whole underrepresentation thing with Asian people, Black people, and Latino people. And then what makes it even worse is you got the history of cinema with stuff like the Hays Code and stuff like that, the real dark skeletons of systemic racism. So when you got all of these things going over time, maybe it's a good thing you do just shut it down so we can rebuild it from square one and figure out what is the Academy, where are we at? Because you can't keep on just doing things to try to appease people. You can't keep doing that. That's kind of stupid. And you can't do things like for the sake of diversity. You want to do things because it's the right thing to do for equality, not because you're being pressured by people that watch movies to do it. You want to do it because it's the right thing to do, right?
Yep.
And that's the part that I think some people that are powerful just don't get. It's not that you've been doing everything this way forever and everything is wrong. Yeah, you did some things right, but you did a lot of things wrong. There's always room for improvement. And sometimes I think it's like, well, we didn't do anything right before. No, there were things that were done right before, but there were things that were done wrong. It's a middle ground, and nobody has a middle ground these days. I think that's the biggest problem. Nobody is able to say, you know what, I was wrong about this, but I was right about this. And nobody's ever able to say, you were right about that, and you were wrong about this. Let's come together. Nobody wants to do that. It's either you're on this side or that side. That's a bad thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Larry, what are your thoughts on this?
Inclusion is always great, right? But I think I'm going to piggyback off what Brandon said. You don't want to include just because. I don't want to get into the phase of, hey, Tyler Perry made a movie. All right, let's just nominate it because we know Black people support Tyler Perry. Whatever your thoughts on Tyler Perry, I don't want to give him a straight bullet or anything. I'm not a fan personally, but yeah. So you don't want to see things just start being included just for the sake of, but you do want to see fairness where if something's on that elite level or something's on that level to be recognized, it should be recognized. It shouldn't just be a boys club, if you want to call it that. Because what I look at it from the standpoint is, where's the money going? It's because even these award shows are about money. The person throwing it probably has some relation to the director that won all the films, or has some relation to the studio that won all the awards. And, it's always going to come back to money, or, some form or fashion of regenerating buzz around a movie that maybe didn't do as well as they thought it should. And they just cast it as being artsy, or you guys don't know anything about movies because you didn't see this movie that was all in whatever language it was in, so you don't want to start doing that just for the sake of. But yeah, I do agree. There's definitely has to be some inclusion, but there has to be some form of middle ground where it's obvious,
Definitely.
If I can, when they do the MTV, I'm sorry to cut you off, Everett, but when they do the MTV Awards and the music awards, you get the idea that it's fun. It just comes across fun. You don't really care who wins. You just want it to be fun. You want to see some live music. You want to enjoy yourself. It's not about having a $50,000 swag bag, $1 million dress. I mean, you can wear one if you want, but if you don't, you can go in like some weird outfit or whatever. And like these award shows, and I'm talking about the Oscars, Golden Globes, American Music Awards, maybe Grammys to a certain extent, they just don't come across fun anymore,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. Because that's what look. If you want to kill the fun vibe to a creative aspect, throw politics in heavy. When you start throwing politics in heavy and people are not getting the awards, people are getting awards, but there's like this strategic underlining scheme why they're getting an award. Not because if Larry gets an award because he worked his tail off to get the award and he did his due diligence, there's fun in that. There's inspiration in that. We support that. It's fun. But if Brad turns around and get an award, and then you find out the reason why he got the award because I'm on the voting committee and I voted for my mans because I want this, because I have an ulterior motive to get to work with him later down the line to get a bigger bag somewhere else, then it's not fun no more because it takes away not only from the win, but then you sitting there here looking like, well, the voting system is rigged because he has somebody that he knows that's his man on the inside.
And then it's becoming even more political. Like right. I think, and then you also take away Kevin Hart, Chris Rock. It's like whoever's hosting it, now they got to think, do I want to host it? I mean, I could say something edgy and then I could have all of Twitter up my butt tomorrow. I mean, that's terrible. It's destroying the prestige of all of it because it's not fun. The voting system seems rigged, and no matter who wins, you're questioning. Who cares? Like what? Why is this movie so special? And you're excluding the movies that are making the most money. How can you be about money and entertainment if the things that make you the most money aren't even allowed in? They're a joke. Well, we'll nominate him because he killed himself trying to play the role. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
but I
crazy,
think that goes to what I was saying, where you said, why don't the films that make the most money get nominated? I think it comes back to giving that second surge for that movie that probably didn't do as well as it should have did in the box office, or probably didn't do as well back when they were selling DVDs, or they still sell with DVDs. They're trying to get that second surge, that second stream, that second wave of, oh, I got to go see this film now. So I think it's, as I hate to keep saying it, comes back down to money. That's how I always look at it. Where's the money going?
Yeah, follow the money. I wanted to get to this last topic, and this topic is about, how do you guys feel, real quick, like a couple sentences about how do you guys feel about sport events going back up to full capacity? Because I am still that person that's going to come out to a sporting event wearing my mask. I don't care what nobody say. I don't trust this society to do the right thing and follow rules all the freaking time. I'll tell you that right now.
I'll tell you what, Larry and I were watching the UFC event that had the full crowd. with Masvidal. Larry and I were there. Like Larry literally called me up, like, and I'm asking him a couple questions. I'm like, I'm on my way. What I think you can expect, especially in the beginning of football season or the beginning of some of these seasons when they go to full capacity, I think you can expect some of the best play you've ever seen, because once that crowd gets into it, and these athletes haven't had that, they haven't had that and for like a whole season now, like a whole year. So the last time some of these guys in pro football, for example, really, like, take a team that didn't go to the playoffs last year or the last year, 2019, 2020, some of these guys haven't felt that rush since 2019. It's going to be 2021, 2 years almost without feeling that rush. You can expect some good play, whatever the sport. They're going to feel that energy for the first time, and it's going to be like electrifying.
Mm-hmm. Larry, what do you think?
I think as far as actually going to events, I'm ready. I'm actually going to see Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 3 in July. So I'm ready to be in the house and feel the energy, as Brandon said, of the crowd. Because nothing quite beats live events. As far as the safety aspect, I think I'm like you, Everett. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to have my mask on, and I'm going to be kind of keeping as much distance as possible. I won't be in a rush to leave the stadium and be in the crowd. I won't be in a rush to get there and be in the crowd. I'm going to try to keep within, arm's length of anybody the whole night. But yeah, it'll definitely be great to get back to live events.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a good thing. I just want everybody to kind of stay safe. And I'm like, look, man, I'm the type of person, if they tell me, yo, mask, or you can lift you don't have to wear a mask inside, I'm wearing a mask inside for a good 2 weeks, just so I wait and see stuff pop off happening. I you know what I mean? I just got to be sure, man. I just got to be sure. I can't help myself. That's just how I am. I can't help myself at all. So, I think it's
super interesting because you're going to go because you love your Ravens. Like that's obviously a big thing on you. You're like, I love my Ravens. I'm going. I'll mask up, whatever. I know how Larry feels about Conor. That's his dude. He's like, I'm going to go to Vegas and see Conor. And I'm sitting over here. I'm like, I can't wait to film live sports again. It's so cool, kind of. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's dope. It's insanely dope. And I'm just very thankful, man. So, guys, I want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join me on this podcast and kind of share your thoughts on the different stuff that's been going on, man. I definitely appreciate it, man. Larry, thank you for coming on. Brandon, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great for sure. Thanks for having me.
Good times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good times.
No doubt.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, this has been another edition of Audio Airstrike. I appreciate you guys for listening. We will be back next Saturday with another episode for this month of May. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Until next time, everybody. Y'all take care.